In the last lesson, we just finished our home page and it looks great. The next thing I want to do is work on our sign up and login interface. So let's go do that, as well as the workflows. But to do this, we don't want to be working on an individual page because we want users to be able to access this on any page they're on. So what do? Well, we head to our reusable element, our navbar. And now when we build this login and sign up workflow, anytime the navbar is present, it will be available to the user. And the navbar is going to be on every page. Therefore, the login and sign up is associated with every single page, no matter where the user is. So we only have to build it once, and it's good to go for all the pages. To do this, we're going to introduce a new element that I don't think we've worked with before, which is called the pop-up. So if we come and drag a pop-up on the screen, let's see what happens here. You can see that it overlaps the previous element and darkens the back of the screen. And this is what a pop-up is. When you click something on a page, something pops up, it covers wherever you want on the page, and it darkens the background area. So great, this is exactly what we want. Let's do the first thing, and the most important is probably the naming convention. So pop-up will be our login and sign up. Now the first thing we probably need to change is the layout. Right now it is fixed. We probably don't want that. We probably want column. And then let's adjust the width and height. So we don't want a fixed width, obviously. We want to make it dynamic. And in this case, we'll actually give, say, a minimum width of 300 and see what that looks like, and a max width of, say, 600. And it looks like a box about the same size. What does 350 look like? Now again, until we put elements in this group, we don't want to change the min height. Reason being, if we put 0, it goes right down to nothing and we can't put anything in there. So let's put some stuff in there and then work with our height. So we'll close this. And let me show you what it looks like on Airbnb first. So when we come over to Airbnb, we click our icon, we click sign up. You see this pop up, and that's what we're building right now. So we want to log or sign the user up and welcome them, and they can click continue and move through that workflow. So let's go back to our bubble, and we're going to drag a text over. Just drag your text box over. We'll come to layouts. Of course, we want to center this, so horizontal center. And for the text, it will just be login/sign up, just like that. And let's go give this some styling. Want it a little bit bigger than that. Let's try 18. And we will bold. Okay, that looks a lot better. Let's give it some margin on the top because I don't like it touching the very, very top. We'll come to layout, and we will come to margin, and we'll give it a top 20. Make sure it's 20 on the left and right as well. And then we want to change the width to take up all of the space available. Give it that min width of 0, and that looks a lot better. So let's move on to the next thing, which would be the welcome Airbnb. So for that, we need to drag a text box. So we'll come and do that. We'll drag the text box, and that's why we picked column. So you can see they go in a column format. We want them listed out like that when designing basically all of our components. You're going to be using column a lot. So we'll say welcome to Airbnb, and then let's change that text a little bit as well. Let's give it an 18. Let's bold it. Let's make this actually smaller. Let's come and give this a 14, but we'll just leave it bolded. It's actually too small. We'll do 16. And we'll leave this at 18. And then right below the welcome to Airbnb, all we're going to put is a login and sign up. So let's drag some input fields over. We'll have 2 of them. So 1. And just copy and paste that below. Just like so, and let's center both those. So come to layout and just move them over like that. Great. Let's move them down a bit. I don't like that they're super close. Let's give this a top margin of 20 pixels. And that looks a lot better. Now, if you come to Airbnb and we click on our pop-up right here, you can see these borders are a bit different. So they have rounded borders on the top and bottom, but it looks like a straight line on the left and right. So there's no roundness here. And it looks like one element, but it's really 2. So how do we do something like that? Let's come back, and let's go to our appearance. And for this, we want to separate the borders we're working with. So right now, we're working with all of the borders, meaning if we change the roundness, it changes for all. What we can do is define each border independently. So we'll select that. Now you can see it separates each border. So we have top left, bottom left. What we want to do is make these bottom left and right 0 to give it that straight line appearance. And for our top left and right, let's give it a 10 roundness. And you can see that it has that straight line with the defined corner right there, but it rounds on the top and bottom. So let's do that for input B as well. And of course, we got to name these inputs. So let's scroll down or go to appearance. And then we can scroll down and we'll define each border independently again. This time we'll make the top left and right 0s. We'll make the bottom right 10, bottom left 10, just like so. Then you can see we got the same effect. You can see that straight line, but on top and bottom, you see the rounded borders, and that's what we're going for. Before I forget, let's change the input name. So we have input, email, and then we have input, password. So password. And then for the text that goes in here, so you can see we have type here right now. Let's actually give a different placeholder and say enter email, and then we'll have enter password. That way the user knows what to do exactly, even though you think it's pretty obvious. It's good to have the best user experience possible where there can be no confusion. Okay, now in password, it has the initial content type as text, but we want to change the content format to password. That allows Bubble to know it's dealing with a password, handles it a bit differently than just regular text. So email, we can also do the same thing. We want it, instead of text, it's email. And that's what's going to allow you to prompt a dropdown if user has, saved emails in their Google account. That's what will reference those if you select email content. All right, the next thing we're going to do is put our button, so our continue button. Let's drag that over. And I think it's a long-looking button. We can check, but I do believe it's pretty long. Sign up. Yep, it takes up most of the page. So we'll come to layout. We'll center it. You can see it's touching. We don't want that. Let's give it a top margin right away of, say, 30. And that looks a whole lot better. So we'll edit the text in there, and we'll say continue. And then we want to change the styling. That's kind of the first thing I want to show you is right now it's that blue styling. And what we've been doing up until now is detaching style just for the sake of time and doing styling that way instead of assigning a style to a primary button. So that basically means that when we make the primary button style, we can use it on any button. We don't have to keep recreating styles. So let's edit the primary button style. Come into our edit screen. You can see once we change all this, we can simply use primary button again and again, and it will maintain the same style. So let's shoot for Airbnb. The first thing we'll do is change the color. The Airbnb color is going to be FF5A5F, and then you can just click off, and then you see it's that red-orange color, and it looks already a lot better than that blue that Bubble defaults to. We can leave the roundness as 5. I think that's fine. Let's increase the boldness a bit, 600. Let's go to 700, a little bit bolder. And let's actually change this from 15 to 16, just 1 pixel bigger. And that looks a lot better. Let's work with this style from now on. So if we come back to our design, see it changed here. And that already looks a lot better. And this is basically a complete sign-up form. Now I want to adjust a few of the sizings on this page. So right now we want this to actually take up all of the space it can. So let's do layout. Let's uncheck make this fixed width. We'll give it that 0 min width. Then you can see it takes up the whole space, but we want the text to be aligned to the left. Let's come back over here to appearance, align that to the left, and we'll give a 20 margin on the right and left. So we'll go to layout. We'll do a 20 margin on the right and left. Then you can see it offsets it a little bit from the screen there. So great, that looks a lot better. It looks a lot more organized. Let's do that for the inputs as well. Come to layout, uncheck the fixed width, and we'll go to 0. And again, this is just for our responsiveness. We want it to move with the screen and not be in these fixed positions. So that looks good. Let's do the same here. We'll uncheck that. We'll go to 0. And then we'll go on and give it a 20 left and right. And one thing I want to change with these inputs, they look a little small. Let's give them like a 40 pixel. See what that looks like. So 40, 40. Yep, I like that a lot better. And the last thing we're going to want to do is change that parent component. Remember, we had that min height of 350. We want that to be 0. and we just want it fitting to content. You see what happened here is now it's hugging the bottom of the button, and that looks disgusting. We want to fix that right away. Let's come to our button. Let's give it a bottom margin of 20. The reason we're going to do 20 here is because that is what our top margin is, and that's how far away it is from the element. So that's exactly what we want to do with the bottom as well. And now we pretty much have our form completed as far as our design, but we want to get right into the workflow and actually define the logic and what's going to happen here. Now I'm going to click off this element and watch what happens. Well, it disappears. So how are we going to come back and edit it? Where did it go? Did it even save? If you come over here to the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see the elements tree. Below that, you'll see all of your hideable elements. So when you click this, you can see a little preview. You click it, and it can pop up all of your hidden elements. So by default, your user's not going to see this pop up unless they click that icon. So it's going to be hidden. When you want to edit it, you just click that little eye icon, and that'll pop it up, and then you can edit. So let's get into our editing. The first thing we want to do is come to our icon, and when a user clicks this icon, we want to display that pop-up. So let's right-click and edit. We'll add a workflow. So when that icon gets clicked, we want to show that pop-up. And how do we do that? Let's come to our element actions, and we'll go to show. And then it'll allow us to select that pop-up. So we'll have pop-up, login, sign up. And that's all we need to display that pop-up. If we went to preview, let's go to our index. We'll preview really quick. So you see we're in our index. If we come and click this icon, we'll see it run our steps here. And then you can see the pop-up does display. And notice that we forgot to change the hover. So right now when I'm hovering, it's blue. We probably don't want that. Let's go change that right now on the hover effect. So we'll come back into our design, go to our nav bar, select that pop-up again, and let's go edit our primary button. So we'll edit the style, and on our conditional, you see this button is hovered, the background color changes to that. Well, we don't want that. Let's do another red. So let's actually enter the same color we had and then just offset it by a little bit. So we'll copy paste the same color, come to our conditional, paste it in, and let's just move it to a little bit lighter of a color, like so. Great, so now when we hover over it, it should not display that blue. And let's move on to the rest of the workflow for our continue button. So we'll come to our workflow, we'll edit the continue button, and what do we want to happen when we click this button? Well, we want to log the user in, but we want to perform a check based on if they're logging in or signing up. So let's first do the login. We'll come to account, and we'll log the user in like we've done previously. And again, we'll select the input that is that email. So scroll down, find input email. We'll select the value, and we'll do the same for the password. So input password, select the value, and we'll stay logged in, and that's all great. But how are we going to know if the user is logged in or if they need to sign up? And if they've signed up or logged in, we need to differentiate those workflows. So let's do that. Let's come to our button, and we can actually define a condition at the click level. So when a click happens, it's going to automatically check for something and direct it to different workflows based on conditions. So the condition for this, we're going to do a search for. And what are we searching for? Well, we're going to look for a user, and we want to look for a certain constraint. So we want to find the email, and we want to see if the email is the same value as what they're inputting. So let's do that. Let's find the input email and select its value, and then we can close that, and then we want to find a count. So what does that mean? Well, we want to know if there is an email. So if this is true, we log in, meaning if it's greater than 1, we'll log the user in. So we'll select count, we'll do greater than, and then simply put 0. Type in 0, just click off, and then we have the conditional we need. So if it finds that email that's been input, it's greater than 0, meaning it returned 1, it will go ahead and log the user in. Now for a sign up, what do you think we need? Well, we need it to equal 0, meaning it hasn't found any result of that email, and it will prompt them to sign up. Now, another thing when we're working with workflows is assigning them colors or event colors. This helps you keep organized. So for example, if we want to know when the login and sign up happens, what those workflows are, we'll click the red option and assign all the events that are associated with login and sign up to that red color. And we'll even do red over here. This is pretty much the sign in login button itself. And then let's do our sign up logic. So we'll come and select element, and we'll say when this element is clicked, and for the element, we can select that button. So button continue. We'll assign it that red color. So let's do the conditional. And we're going to do the same thing. We'll do a search for. We'll find that user, and then we'll add a constraint. And the constraint we're looking for, again, is that email. So email is going to be equal to that input email's value. So input email, that value. And if it doesn't find anything, it'll be equal to 0, and then we can run this workflow. So we'll close that. We'll do a count. We'll do equal to. And for the equal, it's actually going to be is. So count is, and then simply type in 0 and click off that. So now it's searching, and if the count is 0, we're going to prompt them to sign up. So let's add that step. Down here, we come to account. We sign the user up, and then we'll enter these same values. So input emails value, then we'll select the input password value, and that's all we need for the logic of logging in and signing up. But what happens if they sign up or log in? Where are they directed? We didn't do anything after they click that button, so nothing's going to happen. Well, if they log in, we probably just want to close that pop-up, because that's what Airbnb does. You log in, and if you log in and you're already an existing user, you simply close the pop-up. So let's do that. Let's come to navigation. We'll come to element actions, actually, because we want to hide that element that we just showed. So we'll hide. And then for the element we're hiding that pop-up that's log in and sign up. So that will trigger the hide of the pop-up. Now, if they are signing up, meaning they're a first-time user, let's direct them to our settings page, which we have yet to set up. So let's set that page up really quick. We'll come up here. We'll add a new page. We'll call it settings. We might change this later, but for now, let's call it settings. Create that page. Then let's come back to our nav bar, and we'll go to the workflow that we were just working on. And for the action, we're going to navigate. We'll go to, and we'll select the settings page. Great. So if they log in and an email is found, it will prompt the login, and then we will hide the pop-up, and they can keep going about their application. If it finds that the count is 0, meaning there's no email found, it will sign them up. Then they will be directed to the settings page, and that concludes how we're going to sign in and log in a user. We can even go test that in our preview. If we come to index, let's go to preview and see how it works. Let's get off debug mode, because that slows us down big time. We'll select our pop-up. We'll enter an email, so test@gmail.com. And this is not a user yet, I believe, so we'll just do test 1, 2, 3. We'll continue. And then you can see we go to the settings page. So that means the user did not exist. So you can see right here it says settings, and that means we signed up. We were a new user. Now if we go back and we preview again, let's click the same button. We'll enter our information again as test@gmail.com, as well as our password. We'll hit continue, and then I entered the wrong password, so test 1, 2, 3. Continue, and now you just stay on your index page, but it hides the pop-up, and that's exactly how we want it to work. So we finished the login sign-up process, but we're still not done with our navigation. In fact, there's a lot more to do. We need to add a search functionality. We need to define what these buttons do right here, and we need to add functionality to our menu button here. So let's head over to the next lesson and play around with our menu bar a little bit more. I'll see you over there.